As I'm here with my buddy German, we've been friends 9 years. He's in real estate in Philadelphia. I live out here in LA, but whenever I'm in town, I always stop by, visit him, or whenever he's in LA, he visits me. He owns right now, what did you say, 175 units?
About 175 units, yeah.
And then what's your goal by the end of 2020?
We want to hit about 350 units. We want to double our portfolio.
Look at you, man. You got your own license plate now.
You always got to have that plate. I've had that plate for 15 years, bro. It's just attached to a nice car now. So here we are in a property that we paid $19,000 for about 3 years ago. We just sold it for $1.1 million 2 months ago, and it cost us about $350,000 to renovate.
So you buy it, you ripped that property down and then rebuilt from scratch, right?
We actually just bought a piece of land. So
Okay.
This was a piece of land right here. We built the property from scratch. It was a 6-unit apartment building, all 1 bedroom, 1 bath.
Let's show everyone the... So 6 units, 1 bed, 1 bath. How much does each unit rent for?
About $1,300.
$1,300. And you sold it for 1.1. You took all that cash out. What'd you do with the money?
Went on a shopping spree. We bought so many other properties that filled up our pipeline for the next year.
Oh, great. And your office is right around the corner, isn't it?
It is. It's three doors down.
You got the hoodie on to 3 doors down. So this office right here. How many employees do you have?
So we have, we've been scaling back and doing some efficiencies, but we used to at one point have 30 employees. We're down to 10.
It's a beautiful corner office.
350 square foot studio will get about $1,000 a month.
So you're saying that the smaller unit's better. You'd rather have a lot more smaller units than kind of a mix of like small and big.
Yeah, so in Philadelphia especially, there's a shortage of 1-bedroom apartments. Everybody wants to live by themselves. Nobody wants to roommate. And there's a huge shortage of them. And people are fine with living in small spaces. They have a lot less stuff now than they did before. And the cost of construction allows you to build much smaller units and charge much more per square foot than you would otherwise.
And then it also kind of makes sense too, because if we're stepping into a recession right now, a lot of the people in the house will downsize to a 2-bedroom apartment. And the people in a 2-bedroom apartment are going to downsize to a 1-bedroom. And ultimately, you then become a low-cost provider in a dense location with a housing shortage, right?
Yeah, absolutely. We always build ourselves as problem solvers, right? We provide high quality goods at very affordable, if not below market rates, and that's what separates us from a lot of other developers. We were able to give back to the communities that we're building in by allowing those people in the communities to take part and appreciate and have access to those luxury apartments that the other developers don't allow, don't create the market for.
Right.
So for us, you're able to live in let's call it a $600 a month apartment for $1,000 a month, which is a huge value. And
Right.
it's a confidence booster. People can come over to your house. You're proud. You have pride of ownership without actually owning the place that you live in.
Right, that makes a lot of sense because everybody wants to feel successful in their own right. They want a nice spot. They want to have a girlfriend or boyfriend come over, or friends over. And you having your apartment set up in an open type of layout not just communicates that, but it's also, it feels bigger.
Yeah, that open floor layout definitely gives the allure of a much larger space when you're restricted by size. So you make the ceilings taller and you try to maintain them as much as possible. Here we have a very angled ceiling. I don't know if you could tell. It gives when you walk in the room, as you walk in the room, the room gets bigger, and that's a huge element of maximizing a space.
And it's also great because you have the lighting here, so the lighting then reflects off the ceiling, which then in turn makes it feel even bigger.
Definitely. You want to have as many windows as possible while still maintaining wall space to hang that TV that everybody wants to watch. So it's a healthy balance of both.
So also developing them and with an open floor plan, it's cheaper for you to do as well because you have less walls, you have less wood. It's just
definitely it's a win-win for everybody. It's easy to lay out, and it's easier for somebody to furnish and make the space their own. If they want to put up their own walls, they put up barriers with furniture or with shelving, whatever it is. Yet when they leave, you still have a blank canvas that you can then do whatever you want with while still maintaining a very marketable, livable unit.
So if you were talking to someone that's making say $40,000 or $50,000 a year right now, they have $10,000 in the bank, they want to get into real estate, there might not be a buyer right now, maybe in 6 months or a year. What suggestion would you have for them to start? Where would they start if you were to do that all over again with all your current experience?
Sure, team up with somebody that absolutely knows what they're doing and watch them. You might, that $10,000, you can flush it down the toilet if you're going to do it by yourself. It's really not enough for you to make a lot of money, but it's going to feel a lot of pain if you're going to lose it. It's much better to invest that with somebody and watch that $10,000 ride with somebody else's $90,000. And during that time, you'll be able to learn so much more. And at the very least, you'll be in a partnership with somebody, and you'll be able to grow with them.
Got it. And so you obviously you have your business right now with your brother. Did you guys partner up with anyone in the beginning?
No, it's one of the lessons we kind of had to learn along the way. You know, you you have to pick and choose your partners wisely. But the one thing that we were fortunate enough is we were able to find lenders that were critical in our success, that allowed us to partner up with them, not in a traditional sense, but they allowed us to buy money and still make the deal work. So if you're able to find a deal that has a lot of equity in it, you're able to kind of make and afford those mistakes. But if you find a deal that has very minimal equity in it, you have very small room for error.
Can you explain what buy the money means to
Sure.
a new investor?
Sure. So instead of having a partner or wife, you borrow somebody's money and then you use it to make more money. So when I say you buy somebody's money, you're pretty much paying them a interest for their money, whether it's 10%, 12%, 13%. But with that interest, you're able to make a 20% return.
He's an insurance adjuster looking at property damage because, you know, being a landlord, not everything always works out. You always have problems, issues. Tell him a little bit about the property damage that you had at the former building.
So we just looked at a property that had roof damage, and as a result of a recent rainstorm that we had, 3 units suffered water damage to the ceilings, cabinets, and floors. So, as you mentioned, property damage is part of owning properties. So as a property owner, he had me come over and assess and determine whether or not it's worth reporting to his insurance company.
Got it. So it started up top and then it just ran down and just carried the damages through the property.
Exactly.
Got it. Any suggestion to anyone starting out in real estate? What type of insurance would you recommend that they get?
Well, I recommend that they develop a good relationship with a good insurance agent. And it's not always the best decision to buy the cheapest insurance policy. You want to make sure that you're adequately insured, so when you have a loss that you're properly covered. So my best advice would be less about the actual policy itself and more so interviewing different insurance agents to develop a competent or a relationship with a competent insurance agent.
Got it. What do you think is the most common mistake, the biggest mistake that you see most people make?
I find across the board, whether it's commercial or residential, most people make the mistake of saving a few dollars, buying the cheapest policy that's available to them, without realizing the donut holes of coverage that they have. So yeah, again, it's making sure that you're adequately covered. Most people treat insurance as an afterthought, something that you just need to do to get through settlement. And in most cases, perhaps you don't need it. But it's the one time that you do when you find out that you don't have the coverages that you need, where you wish that you had the right coverage.
Got it. Have you ever seen anyone lose property or anything like that by underinsuring? You ever seen anyone take a major loss by doing exactly what you just mentioned?
Yeah, absolutely. I've come across lots of people that have been underinsured. So in the short term, they might have saved a couple $100s, but in the long term, they lost thousands and thousands of dollars.
Got it. Cool. Thank you so much, man. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
So what do you think is going to happen ultimately with the market? Because a lot of people are scared right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough to call, but the one thing that you could easily do is you can call your lender up and be like, hey, listen, you know, my rate's at X, the rate is currently Y, so why can't we refi? Or can you just reduce it? You know, it doesn't matter if you closed the loan yesterday, it's worth a conversation to have, because that 5-minute phone call could save you literally thousands of dollars.
So you mean if someone bought a property a year ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, they're at a 4.5% interest rate, 30-year fixed. So like 4 units and below, which is everyone knows is residential. So if you have that rate, you're saying to call them and do refi and get into a better loan?
Yeah, you actually don't have to refi. I mean, it's technically a refi, but a lot of them will just change the rate on you. It's just like calling a credit card company and saying, hey, I don't want to pay 22% this month. I want to pay 0% for the next 12 months. So the same thing they'll do. They want to keep your business. Banks are struggling right now. You know, the lower their interest rate is, the less money the bank makes. So they need to increase it by giving out way more money to keep that same margin. So if you call them up and you say, hey, listen, I have this other bank knocking on my door and giving me a much lower rate, I need you to match it, they will.
Got it.
Real estate is the business of negotiating.
Yeah.
So as an entrepreneur, you have to take advantage of times like these. And this is going to be the best time to be in the business.
So
If
what
you don't
would
start now, you're literally losing millions of dollars because of low interest rates, opportunity to purchase at an all-time low. You're going to see within the next few months that it is inevitable that multiple millionaires will be made off of the current pace of the market.
what mistakes have you made kind of starting out?
Plenty of mistakes. I mean, you can hire GCs that never show up. You can overpay for work because you don't know the true cost of what it is. But when you have the right people around you, mentors like yourself, mentors like Jeremy, mentors in general are what it's going to progress you and alleviate any financial burdens that you might come into contact with. So taking a course, learning now will educate you for the rest of your life.
Got it. So do you think you think the next few months, next year is going to be pretty much the time for people to start?
Absolutely. If you're young, have an entrepreneurial mindset, you're going to make a ton of money within the next year, 2 years, 5 years. You can set yourself up right now for the rest of your family's life and generations to come.
Is your focus more the small deal, ground up construction, remodel? Where do you?
Absolutely. I love the art of the small deal. I mean, I think there's plenty of money to be made in shit. Philosophy is there's more money in the hood than Hollywood.
Right.
I buy stuff that no one wants to buy, and you know, I'm playing the long game.
Got it. Do you think that so you think having friends like Jeremy and other people is pretty much the biggest asset to your business?
Absolutely. I'd rather have mentors at the current stage that I'm at than millions of dollars behind me, because there's no amount of money that can match education.
Right.
You're literally you're not gonna live long enough to learn from all the mistakes that you're gonna make. So your best use of your time is to learn from other people's mistakes while you make your own. That's the only way you're gonna amplify your trajectory in a way that's gonna completely change your life.
So in the beginning, did you know that, or did you kind of learn a few mistakes the hard way and you're like, you know what, forget this, I'm going to link up with X, Y, and Z and better set myself up for the future and not make these similar mistakes?
I'm a glutton for punishment. So I've learned a lot of my mistakes through my own stupidity. But at a certain point, you get tired of feeling stupid. So you start being the dumbest person in the room, and you start learning from a whole lot of other smart people. It's like Mike always says, you know, like a rising tide raises all ships. And it's really true. The people that you surround yourself are the greatest asset and accelerator to your growth that you could ever imagine. So imagine like the 5 friends that you could possibly name right now, they're probably all doing just as good or just as bad as you right now. It's the guy that's driving that Porsche that you want to be driving, that you want to talk to. And if you talk to him, he'd be more than happy to help you to get that Porsche.
And you have a Porsche.
I do have a Porsche.
That's why
So, what mistake did you make that was really kind of the staple of the glutton for punishment, where you said, you know what, I really have to make a change?
Yeah, it's when we started, when we were doing our own rehabs. You know, we used to hang our own drywall. We used to do our own demo. We used to do all of that. And then I realized, you know what, like, if my back's gonna hurt, I'm not gonna have enough time to look for other deals. And it's much easier to have a whole other group of people around you to help you to do that. So that's what you learn. You learn that you can't do everything on your own, and you realize that you have to use your resources to be able to get a team of people around you that are really good at what they do, because your weaknesses will slow you down much more than your strengths will bring you up.
$5,000 a month in rent.
About $5,000. And what's your rationale behind spending $5,000?
It's a barrier of entry. It's a country club membership. You know, you're allowed to network with somebody that is able to afford that rent, and that rent ends up paying for itself more times than not. So that ability to be able to talk to somebody on a different level and learn from them is paramount. It's just like tuition.
So give the example. We were walking here and you were saying something about, you know, if you live in a duplex, you live in a fourplex, you're going to live next door to someone in a duplex or a fourplex. And
yeah, it goes back to, like, you know, show me your 5 friends and I'll show you that, you know, who you are. So it's the same thing. You know, your neighbors kind of define you, and
just like the next door neighbor that lives in that duplex. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just that more times than not, that Joe the plumber doesn't know anybody that owns the business, right? He usually knows guys that work for somebody that knows the business. Versus you live in a building like this where most of the guys here own their own company, or they're at a much different managerial level than the guy that lives in a duplex in a working class neighborhood. Again, nothing wrong with that. Everybody grows up in different levels, but these are the kind of things that you don't see advertised.
Right. So you don't see that on the bottom line when you sign for that lease.
No, not at all. And the other thing is, you buy a house that you're going to live in order for you to get your money back, you have to sell that house the next day for at least 8 to 10% more than what you paid for it. And unless you're in a highly transitioning neighborhood where those values can grow really quick, you're going to be stuck with that house versus renting. You can leave tomorrow and your rent stops.
Right. So you also do JetSmart, or you pay literally pay like 10 grand?
Pay $10,000 a year.
And you've met a lot of people through that app, and you also like you do other type of you put money in places where you're going to build relationships, not so much where you're not wearing watches and stuff like that.
Absolutely. It comes down to, again, it's a country club mentality. JetSmart is a country club in the sky. People who are able to pay that entry to get over that barrier of entry, they're part of that same circle that you want to be a part of. So I rather skimp on my rent. If I don't have any money, I'd rather live in a place that allows me to save a little bit of money and then contribute and pay for a membership. That membership will accelerate your growth quicker than going to work every single day and talking to your neighbors about the football team, how the football team did last night.
Yeah, exactly. So you invested in a tech startup, Math with Friends, and you're doing other things just through relationships and things that you've done with those memberships, right?
Absolutely. My membership has paid for itself several times over, just from business relationships that you end up starting with people. It's always more fun to make money with friends. So you end up making friends, and then you have some small ideas, and these hobbies turn into some small money making operation that ends up paying for the membership itself. It might not be the sole source of income, but that side income ends up being much more valuable than you think.
So when you're kind of building out these relationships, a lot of people think that you just go into an elevator with someone in the building, or you see someone that's a part of that gathering, and then you go up and you try to sell them or give them a business card or something like that, and try to like jam what you're doing down their throat, and hopefully it results in money. What is your take on that?
Yeah, I mean, that's the quickest way to get ostracized from any group, right? You want to give as much value, and you want to give it without expecting anything back. And when people realize the value that you provide to them, that's when they open up. It's like it's the old mantra: you got to give to get. And if you end up giving without expecting getting anything back, you'll end up getting back tenfold what you gave. And that's how you end up being part of any group.
So what are your plans for 2020 to kind of move what you've done in the past with your social circles forward, to then use those new relationships to take you to who you want to be in 2021?
For sure. Just like with seasons and leaves fall from trees, every year you need to be able to do an evaluation and do some house cleaning and evaluate who in your life is a giver and who in your life is a taker. And you do that because you only have so much time in your life for everybody. So every year you kind of make a purge and you kind of evaluate who you want to spend more time with. You start hanging out with people that invite you to other places where you meet other people. You start hosting dinners that nobody knows anybody. So those kind of things that make you step outside of your comfort zone allow you to expand and grow in ways that you wouldn't have otherwise grown. Otherwise, you'll just live in a vacuum and you're just kind of talking about the same stuff and everybody's kind of doing the same thing.
Yeah, so
year after year.
The same year, 20 years in a row.
Absolutely.
So when you step forward and you do that purge and you kind of move your life forward in that direction, what are you going to do for 2020? Like, what specific activities are you going to take that is going to push you there?
Sure. So like one of the things that we started doing is hosting a monthly dinner with you bring somebody that nobody in the group knows. That one person ends up having a ripple effect on a social circle many times over. So that one little minor step can change the trajectory of your life or your year or your day.
That's great. And so with someone that's just kind of starting out, they're like in a $40,000 a year job, maybe they have college debt, credit card debt, what do you recommend for them to do to kind of start that process moving forward?
Yeah,
What's the right step?
Yeah, there's a million different avenues. One of which is, if you're in real estate, you know, seek out the local, you know, kind of, I don't want to say country club, but the young professionals club, and see if you can join. They're really not that expensive to join. Even if you make 40 grand a year, it might not cost you $100 a month. While that might seem like a lot, it's really not that much if you look at it as an investment. It's cheaper than paying for a car. It's cheaper than for a lot of things, but it'll give you a much greater return on your investment.
Got it. So the moral of what you're saying is essentially forget the luxuries, focus on the value, focus on the relationships.
For sure.
And then the luxuries will come through those relationships.
Absolutely.